I guess I'm ready to go, or as ready as I'm ever going to be. I don't like this low-level cut-off. It's cutting me off at the beginning of every word. Right, we are live on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Welcome to the stream. If you're watching on the replay, then enjoy the show. It's just Paul and myself, Moira O'Brien, at the moment, because Ted's having technological problems connecting from sunny Spain. All right for some, isn't it? So, can I...
Well, I'm having my own technological problems, but at least you can hear me and at least you can record it. But any second now, things might get better.
Well,
yes.
I'm certainly waiting, Paul, for your things to improve, but not holding my breath, at least not too carefully.
No, everything's about to be sorted. At least it appears to be on my laptop. It's connecting now.
Good. Are we going to hold off until you're sorted then, do you think?
Yeah, just give me a minute. Just talk among yourselves.
Okay. Well, let's see. What are we going to talk about today? I'm quite fascinated by the subject of your segment, Paul, which I'm just about to have to put into my notes. And somebody's just logged in. It's Paul O'Mahony. How fantastic.
Now, don't count your chickens. It's still connecting at my end.
Okay, well, you're showing us online, but no, just online. Oh, yeah. No, ask to start video. Let's see what happens.
It's all connecting. It's all connecting at this end. Tell me, well, I sent you the title of the piece I'm going to do today.
You did indeed. And I'm just going to key it up, but I've lost connection on...
and it's something like, today we are stronger.
Something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, it did sort of puzzle me for... Now,
well, it'll puzzle everybody unless they have been immediately logging into Toastmasters International and looking at the contents of August's magazine.
Which
but
I haven't actually looked at it yet.
I'm in.
Right, you're going to have to close your phone down. That's it. It's better. It's much better. Right, Jeff Bezos. I don't know what we're going to call the Jeff Bezos thing, because these videos, they don't give you a sensible title. You know, the title that was given to this speech was something like, you know, the most stupendous speech you've ever heard, or something stupid like that. And it really isn't. It's just a vaguely motivational speech, which I don't think I would have chosen. But there we are. It wasn't my choice. I can't hear you because you're muted, Mr. Division A, Toastmasters International. And would you also change your name to yourself, please? Or I'll change it for you. Rename.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, I hear you.
Right. Yeah, I was in the other account for the club officer training. That's why. And I thought to myself, anyway, everything's clear at this end now. Good.
Good. Let's consider maybe starting. Of course, what have I done now? What? Minus? How do I get minus? God's sake. I don't know, Audacity's been playing me up today. I don't know what it's doing. Anyway, I think I'm ready to go. Welcome, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters, listeners and friends. You're very welcome to the Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. It's a lovely day. Well, it was a lovely day in Ireland. I was going to say it's a beautiful day, but actually we've lost summer. Summer has departed from us, and now it's raining as we record this show. As always, I'm going to start this again because I've got my brain has gone into complete mind fart. Yeah.
Unusual.
Yeah. Well, I was trying maybe to be a bit different, but failing miserably. Well, succeeding but failing, if you know what I mean.
Well, you succeeded at trying something different. I mean, that deserves to be credited.
I did.
Yes, that's a level 1 you've passed.
Welcome, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters, listeners and friends, to the Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. You can find us on Facebook as the Talk Show for Talkers. We have a website, which is irishtalkers.com, and you can contact us by email on info@irishtalkers.com. My name is Moira O'Brien, and I'm joined today by the persistent Paul. Now, I've changed the word. I've been trying to find another P to allocate to you, Paul. Would persistent do for you?
Oh, persistence is my middle name. My mother called me Paul Persistent Hugh O'Mani. So persistent is a really good word for me. Listeners, you're very welcome to this show. I feel very fortunate to have your attention. Hopefully, Moira O'Brien and I will be able to hold your attention throughout this podcast episode, just as we would be trying to do if we were at a normal Toastmasters meeting.
Now, we normally have Ted Bernanke with us, but unfortunately he's having problems with his internet and getting connection. So we'll have to soldier on as best we can without his mellifluous voice. So what do we have in store for you today? Well, we have, as usual, a word of the week. We have a thought for the week, which Ted has kindly given us, and I will endeavour to do justice to. Paul will be talking about, well, I don't know what he's going to be talking about, but the title is Today We Are Strong. We're going to find out eventually, of course. And I will be continuing the look at rhetorical devices. But let us start off, as the way we mean to go on, by the quotation that Ted has given us. And it's from somebody who I've never heard of, but I'm guessing is an Irishman. I'm going to struggle over the pronunciation of this person's name. It is Stephen O'Malley. Sure. But if you see the Irish spelling, you'll understand. Well, if you look at our website, you'll see the Irish spelling there. It's Stiofa fodder I-N-O fodder. Stefan. Where you see it,
Stefan is the Gaelic pronunciation, the Irish pronunciation of Stephen.
Exactly. Anyway.
I thought for a minute it was a Polish person we were taking, Stefan.
Stefan anyway, O'Malley. No, it's Stephen O'Malley. Anyway, he says, morning is the rudder of your day. Morning is the rudder of your day. Now, as a sailor, well, a one-time sailor, I don't currently sail, but I'm fully aware of what a rudder is. And a rudder is that thing at the back of the boat which steers you and keeps you on course. So why would morning be the rudder of the day? Paul, what's your thought on this?
Well, it's pretty obvious, Moira. I don't know why you missed it, really. It's just when you wake up at the start of the day that sets your course for the rest of the day. A very early time. So it's really drawing attention to the importance of the early part of the day. And clearly, if in the early part of the day you steering into a squall and a whole collection of unpleasantries, that is could be called the rudder of your day. But if you can get your mood into something more productive, then you're pretty well set up to make some progress during that day. How about that as a extemporaneous explanation?
Well, I'll give you 7 out of 10 for that, I think. You know, it could have been a little bit more inspirational, but given the rather sparsity of information contained in the quotation itself, I think you did a pretty good job. You see, as a sailor or an ex-sailor, all I can do is I can't get beyond the thoughts of this boat sailing through the Mediterranean or where it happens to be, and me holding the rudder, the tiller. You see, yeah, that's interesting. You see, when you think of it as a sailor, whilst the rudder is the physical action that steers the boat, it's the tiller which you hold in order to move the rudder. So maybe it should be that the morning is the tiller of your day, or even the wheel if you happen to be on a big expensive boat.
Now look, let me put my hand up and say I don't know the difference between a rudder and a tiller. Is one the thing that's up in the boat, that the handle that you pull?
That's the
or
one.
The thing that you turn, and the other thing, the thing that's below the water?
You've got it in one or two.
Ah, right.
Yes.
I got it that way then. Okay.
Yes. So
But
for
of course, if there's no hand on the tiller, as often happens to me first thing in the morning, where I don't feel I'm in control of anything, the rudder is still facing in a certain direction, and therefore my day is I've often had a ruddy day, a ruddy.
Well, now again, going back to the sailing metaphor, I would have to say to you, well, if you let go of the tiller, then the boat, if it's a sailing boat, is just going to go into wind, and the sails will flap, and the boat will go nowhere. So having a hand on the tiller is very important.
Well, now there we are. We've stumbled into a whole field particularly when you connected it with nautical expressions, because we're all in favor of sailing off into the sunset or riding out the storm. Mm-hmm. So we've got a whole lot of useful language there. And I once knew somebody who knew something about boats, and they told me there were an awful lot of words that I would never have heard about, which are parts of boats. And I said, well, actually, I'll swap you. I'll tell you all the words for cricket. And he backed off.
Well, I can tell you that the nautical language is a whole completely different language, which it can take years to learn.
Well, since humans have been longer in boats than they've been in combustion engines, so definitely I'd expect there to be more words.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I would say that there's probably a stupendous amount of words in boat language.
It's been an awesome topic, hasn't it, Moira? It's been an awesome topic. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's awfully awesome. What a pain in the neck that word awesome sounds to me. I can't speak for anybody else. I have an unrepresentative stomach for words. But yes, Moira has rightly given you the word of the week. It's stupendous. And so it's, I know the first question that's on your mind, which is, oh my goodness, how on earth do I spell that word? Well, it's to be distinguished from stupid. You're not stupid if you can't spell stupendous. So let's start with stupendous. Have you got it? Stupendous. And it really does mean awesome. But if you want it to mean something better than awesome, you can say it's gargantuan. Gargantuan is huge. Stupendous is huge. Stupendous has two meanings. Stupendous can mean enormous, like that mountain there is stupendous, well, that balloon is stupendous, whatever you want to call it, something very big. That is not the common meaning of the word. So be careful if you're going to use it. The more common meaning of the word stupendous is that it's marvelous, terrific, exceedingly superb. Something, it's certainly, if you want to exaggerate a point, if you wanted to say to somebody that the speech they had made at a Toastmasters meeting was rather good, not bad. That's okay. Yeah, that was all right. Well, you would quickly be brought to book by the grammarian for using such awful language. And the grammarian might very well say, if you consider that the speech is worthy in some way of a positive comment, you might be inclined to say that was a stupendous speech there. That at least would have people amused. It would also indicate to people that you thought well of the speech. And since very often people are used to exaggerating by saying that was a very good speech, when the speech wasn't actually very good, it was just good, we would all take such exaggerations in our stride. Stupendous. Actually is a word that will capture the attention of people and it will thrill them. Similar to words like marvelous.
Can I just correct your pronunciation, if I may be so bold? It's not stupendious, it's stupendous.
Oh, definitely. Oh, my goodness. I thought I had spelled the word correctly. Sorry, I should spell the word again.
Stupendous. Yeah, no I. Okay, well, that brought us very neatly.
That certainly killed the word off. That was a stupendous intervention there. All interest in the word was replaced by interest in a letter.
Absolutely.
Well, that's the word of our week.
And with that, it's brought us absolutely very neatly to the end of our first segment. So please do join us again tomorrow when we will be bringing you a motivational speech from somebody who I think you might have heard of, Mr. Jeff Bezos. See you then.
Oh, this is the Amazon man.
That's the Amazon man himself, yeah.
Oh, right. This is the man who employs people at 1 cent an hour and sells what they produce at... No, he doesn't. He does something else, doesn't he? Yes. Where would we be without Amazon?
Where would we be indeed? I have nothing against Jeff Bezos because I do like Amazon. I think Amazon's done the world, generally speaking, some good.
Yes.
What I do dislike is the fact that he has... Well, I'm going to change it. The system has allowed him to become ridiculously rich. I mean... riches beyond any sort of imagination.
Well, if it's beyond your imagination, then don't let it bother you.
I don't let it bother me because I will. I
have a new app here, Moira.
You were showing me something there.
Yes, I was showing you an app. I'll tell you, it's called Counter.
Really?
Yes.
What a surprise!
It's the Counter app, and I'm going to use it now.
Good man.
I tell you what. Either are you. Are you going to be the counter or am I?
No, I think you are because I'm too busy with my.
Well, I want to try this out. So off you go with the speech
technicals.
then.
Okay.
And,
we'll see what we can do.
You can comment on the content, and I'll comment on the gaps.
Okay, I will do my best. Now I have partially listened to this before, but only partially. I didn't listen to it properly. Let me just finish off a little bit of audacitying. Do I have Audacity set up? I don't. Let's just give you this. Audacity. There it is. Now, where is it? Come on. Audacity. Audacity screen. That's it. There we go. Audacity, Talk Show for Talkers, 14th of August. That's the one. Right. So now, listeners, viewers, you will be able to see, hopefully, the Talk Show for Talkers Audacity file. Now, I have a slight problem here. I've lost a very important toolbar. I've got to try and find it again. View, show tab bar, show all tabs, zoom, toolbars.
See, if we had Ted here, he and I could be chatting while you're looking for your toolbar.
Well, it's fine. I found it again because I always know where it is. I always know how to get it back. I don't necessarily know where it is. It managed to hide itself.
I'm standing by with my app ready to use.
Okay.
I've got the speaker's name in top, and I'm also able to count the number of minutes.
Okay. Right. Let's move on to the start of the next segment. Set the cursor to the beginning, and then we can go back to here and welcome to part 2 of this week's Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. I'm now going to play you a speech or a compilation anyway of sayings by Jeff Bezos. Now, I'm sure you've heard of Jeff Bezos. He is the founder and I think he's the major shareholder in Amazon, the online app. And apart from being an exceedingly wealthy man, he does have a few interesting things to say about life. So let's listen to him and see what he says. That was a pretty rubbishy introduction. Okay, are you ready, Paul?
You guys will find that you have passions, and having a passion is a gift. I think we all have passions, and you don't get to choose them. They pick you, but you have to be alert to them. You have to be looking for them. And when you find your passion, it's a fantastic gift for you because it gives you direction, it gives you purpose. You can have a job, or you can have a career, or you can have a calling. And the best thing is to have a calling. And if you find your passion, you'll have that, and all your work won't feel like work to you. Many, many kids and many grown-ups do figure out over time what their passions are. And sometimes we let I don't think it's that hard. I think what happens though sometimes is that we let our intellectual selves overrule those passions. And so that's what needs to be guarded against. My job, one of my jobs as the leader of Amazon, is to encourage people to be bold. And people love to focus on things that aren't yet working. And that's good, it's human nature. That kind of divine discontent can be very helpful. But you really, it's incredibly hard to get people to take bold bets. And you need to encourage that. And if you're gonna take bold bets, they're going to be experiments, and if they're experiments, you don't know ahead of time whether they're going to work. Experiments are by their very nature prone to failure, but big successes, a few big successes compensate for dozens and dozens of things that didn't work. So, bold bets, AWS, Kindle, Amazon Prime, our third-party seller business, all of those things are examples of bold bets that did work, and they pay for a lot of experiments. I've made billions of dollars of failures at Amazon.com, literally billions of dollars of failures. And you might remember Pets.com or Cosmo, or give myself a root canal with no anesthesia very easily. None of those things are fun, but they also. They don't matter. What really matters is companies that don't continue to experiment, companies that don't embrace failure, they eventually get in a desperate position where the only thing they can do is make a kind of Hail Mary bet at the very end of their corporate existence. Whereas companies that are, making bets all along, even big bets, but not bet the company bets. I don't believe in bet the company bets. That's when you're desperate. That's That's the last thing you can do. It's not, you could be out of work and have terrible work-life balance. You know, even though you've got all the time in the world, you could just feel like, oh my God, you know, I'm miserable, and you would be draining energy. And so you have to find that harmony. It's a much better word. And I think for most people, it's about meaning. People want to know that they're doing something interesting and useful. And for us, you know, because of the challenges that we have chosen for ourselves, we get to work in the future, and it's super fun to work in the future for the right kind of person. You need to be nimble and robust, so you need to be able to take a punch, and you also need to be quick and innovative and doing new things at a high speed. That's the best defense against the future, and you have to always be leaning into the future. If you're leaning away from the future is going to win every time. Never, ever, ever lean away from the future. We all have adversity in our lives. I doubt if you really, you know, if you know somebody, any friend or anybody that you talk to, there's no lack of adversity. And by the way, that's good, because it's what teaches us how to get back up. You fall down, you get back up. It always happens. And you know, you get certain gifts in life, and you want to take advantage of those. But I guess my advice on adversity and success would be to be proud not of your gifts, but of your hard work and your choices. So, you know, you may be, the kinds of gifts you get in life, you know, you might be really good at math. It might be really easy for you. That's a kind of gift. But practicing that math and taking it to the next step, that could be very challenging and hard, and take a lot of sweat. That's a choice. You can't really be proud of your gifts because they were given to you. You can be grateful for them and thankful for them. But your choices, you choose to work hard. You choose to do hard things. Those are choices that you can be proud of. Being an inventor requires, because the world is so complicated, you have to be a domain expert. I mean, in a way, even if you're not at the beginning, you have to learn enough so that you become a domain expert. But the danger is, once you've become a domain expert, you can be trapped by that knowledge. And so inventors have this paradoxical ability to have that, you know, 10,000 hours of practice and be a real domain expert, and have that beginner's mind. Have that look at it freshly, even though they know so much about the domain. And that's the key to inventing. You have to have both. And I think that is intentional. I think all of us have that inside of us, and we can all do it, but you have to be intentional about it. You have to say, yeah, I am going to become an expert, and I'm going to keep my beginner's mind. You can't skip steps. You have to put one foot in front of the other. Things take time. There are no shortcuts. And but you want to do those steps with, you know, passion and ferocity. It's easy to have ideas. It's very hard to turn an idea into a successful product. There are a lot of steps in between, and it takes persistence, relentlessness. So I always tell people who are, you know, who think they want to be entrepreneurs, you need a combination of stubborn relentlessness and flexibility. And you have to know when to be which. And basically, you need to be stubborn on your vision, because otherwise it'll be too easy to give up. But you need to be very flexible on the details, because as you go along pursuing your vision, you'll find that some of your preconceptions were wrong, and you're going to need to be able to change those things. So I think taking an idea successfully all the way to the market and turning it into a real product that people care about and that really improves people's lives is a lot of hard work. Don't try to chase what is kind of the hot passion of the day. I think we actually saw this. I think you see it all over the place in many different contexts, but I think we saw it in the internet world quite a bit, where, you know, at the sort of peak of the sort of internet, you know, mania in, say, 1999, you found people who were, you know, very passionate. Something they kind of left that job and decided I'm going to, go do something in the internet because it's, it was almost like the 1849 gold rush in a way. I mean, you find that people, if you go back and study the history of the 1849 gold rush, you find that, at that time, everybody who was within shouting distance of California was, they might have been a doctor, but they quit being a doctor and they started panning for gold. And that almost never works. And even if it does work, according to some metric, financial success or whatever it might be, I suspect it leaves you ultimately unsatisfied. So you really need to be very clear with yourself. And I think one of the best ways to do that is this notion of projecting yourself forward to age 80, looking back on your life and trying to make sure you've minimized the number of regrets you have. That works for career decisions, it works for family decisions. Do you want, I have a 14-month-old son, and it's very easy for me to, if I think about myself when I'm 80, I know I want to watch that little guy grow up. And so I don't want to be 80 and think, shoot, I missed that whole thing and I don't have the kind of relationship with my son that I wished I had, and so on and so on. So if you think about that, so I guess another thing that I would recommend to people is that they always take a long-term point of view. And I think this is something about which there's a lot of controversy. There's a lot of people, and I'm just not one of them, believe that you should live for the now. I think what you do is you think about the great expanse of time ahead of you and try to make sure that you're planning for that in a way that's going to leave you ultimately satisfied. So this is the way it works for me. And I mean, everybody needs to find that for themselves. So I think there are a lot of paths to satisfaction, and you need to find one that works for you.
Right.
Well, fascinating stuff.
Hold on, we're not recording yet. And I need to get rid of that now. Okay. Right. Okay, do you want to start off? 3, 2, 1, go.
Well, Moira, we had an example there of a speech by a person who has been relatively successful in the entrepreneurial business.
You could say that.
In their life. And I wonder if first of all, who was the audience?
No, because I think it was a compilation of a number of different recordings. You could hear that by the different quality in the recordings.
Yes, I was a little distracted by my wish to uncover what the secret of greatness was in speech making here.
Well, I'd made notes all the way through, trying to track the path of his thoughts, and it was quite interesting. I think it was quite well put together. If this was taken from a number of different speeches, maybe on different subjects, whoever put it together did manage to get a reasonably good stream together. Find your passion, intellectual self-awareness, bold bets, billion-dollar failures, work in the future, be proud of your gifts, being an expert, become trapped, be an inventor. Inventors are beginners. No shortcuts, ideas to products, stubborn vision, flexible and detailed. Don't chase the fashionable. And I sort of ran out at the end because I think he sort of got into a more or less a summarization type view. But it was quite well strung together. If I was to give a recommendation, I would say simplify it. It was all rather too complex. There was too much. You could take just 3 elements of that and go into a little bit more detail on those 3 elements, have a good, clear transition from one element to the next, which there wasn't in this speech. There was very little transition. It was just almost a stream of consciousness.
Can I get a word in edgeways in your stream of consciousness?
No, you can have the floor entirely to yourself instead.
I thought it was a dreadful piece of oratory. I counted 31 times that the word "and" was used.
Mm-hmm.
And the speaker has not realized that when you put "and" in between two pieces, you dilute the power of the sentence. So, for example, if I said to you, I got a really good bicycle in Woolworths, and I was able to go and give it to my grandson. Now, a way to make that more powerful is to say, I got a really good bicycle in Woolworths. I was able to go and give it to my grandson, and you'll have impact with both of them.
Yeah.
Jeff was stuck in a habit which did him no benefit, in which he littered the entire segments. And even if they were segments that were made up of decent chunks of the speech, there was such a superfluity of the word "and," and then a whole load of ums and ahs, of course, which I won't bother commenting on, that I thought, well, that's why I asked who was the audience, because I thought, well, were the audience being paid to listen to him? I didn't think there was an original idea in there, but of course they were all going to be interesting because of who they were coming from. And I thought that, look, if only he went to Toastmasters, had an "ah" counter, he would get a lot better. The other thing I thought is that piece of text, that piece of speaking there, could be very useful for the training of our counters.
Yes.
If you've got several people in a room, each of whom were learning to develop their counting skills, you play a piece like that, you give each of them an app like the one I have on my phone, which I used for recording the number of superfluities. And you could very interestingly compare the listening acuity of the people learning to become better counters. After all, one of the big things people do discover when they join Toastmasters is how helpful it is to notice what other people are doing so that you can tell them afterwards what you notice them doing. And
Indeed,
maybe
Paul.
Jeff is completely unaware of the extent to which he uses the word "and."
I'm going to cut you short there, Paul, because I think we've gone on enough about this. I do agree with you. But we'll ask you to join us again tomorrow at the same time when Paul will be waxing lyrical once again. Well, I hope he will be. With a stupendous topic, We Are Stronger Today. We'll see you then. Sorry, Paul, we're going way, way, way over time on that. We didn't actually have that much time.
I'm sorry it causes the system to...
Well, it just makes it more difficult for me because I allow 3 or 4 minutes of overrun, and we were 5 minutes over. So I didn't want to stop you in total midstream, but I will cut a little bit just to...
Stop me before I start even.
No, I wouldn't do that, for God's sake.
I have this ridiculous difficulty here. I hope it's going to be resolved before I want to speak about We Are Stronger Today.
Yeah, well, I can give you a few minutes to think about that.
No, I'm ready when you're
okay, well, let me just do this little bit of manipulation, because if I don't, I end up causing myself some annoyance, if not problems. Compress. Get rid of intro. Yeah, for those listeners on YouTube, the reason that Paul was counting that particular speech was that I had mentioned to him that I'd listened to the speech before the meeting started, before the recording started, and I had noticed how many poor uses of language there were in terms of ahs and ums and likes and you knows, etc. So that prompted Paul to do his accounting job. Okay, let's get the next segment going. I don't know why I left you on the screen, Paul, all in your lonesome while I was doing that. Welcome to part 3 of the Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. And as usual, it's the time when we hand the metaphorical baton over to Paul Omani. And Paul has entitled his contribution today, We Are Stronger Today. Now, he tells me this is prompted by the Toastmasters magazine. And I haven't yet looked at that online. Maybe you have, so maybe this will mean a little bit more to you. Means not a lot to me. So, Paul, please put me out of my misery.
Impossible. Impossible.
You mean I'm too miserable?
Let me take on another task, though, which is that our listeners, I know very well that you have changed jobs in your lifetime.
Yes, has happened.
From one job to another. You have been promoted. You've moved from one role to another, and you've had opportunities where you've had to hand on the baton to somebody else. And indeed, you may very well have had the experience of needing to speak to a group of people after you finish the project, after you finish the role, after you finish the job. And the challenge you have had is, how do I structure a speech when I'm leaving? What do I say? And we've recently had the example of a very important person in Toastmasters International leaving the role, which he's been in for 1 year. And Deepak Menon, who is still, but will be handing over this month, the international president, had to say something. And he did it in 2 ways. He wrote what in effect is a speech in the Toastmasters magazine. And he also has a 35-minute podcast interview there. So if you want to hear him speak, no problem at all. But what I'd like to concentrate on is the way in which he structured the piece of text which he put into the magazine. Now, you're leaving your job, you're handing on, let's say everything's gone very well in one sense, so you're not leaving in a hump or something like that. So where do you start? A great place to start is go back to the beginning. What were things like before you...
Paul, can I stop you there? There's an awful lot of background noise coming from your end.
Yeah, I'll close the door, but I can't help it. I will close the door. I'm in a building where I don't have control.
Okay.
Over the sound.
Well, that's certainly better. Right, I'll take you back a sentence or two. So listen.
Take me back a couple of sentences, if you like.
Yeah, listen to this. There's an awful lot of background noise. Oh, wait a minute, that's me.
What I think things like. So where do you start? A great place to start is go back to the beginning.
Is that a good place to start?
So where do you start? A great place to start is go back to the beginning. What were things like before you...
Paul, can I stop you there? How's that? Paul?
Yeah, I'm just watching to see if the sound is going to permanently stop. If you hang on a minute, I think we'll get a permanent stop.
Yeah? Okay.
It's just my brother-in-law is carrying heavy pieces of equipment out of his storage space, and he's moving stuff around. So
Well, I can't hear anything now since you closed the door. It's been quiet.
okay, let's go back. Oh, so what did you say?
Okay.
It's good to start at the beginning, yeah? Or
Yeah.
where do you start? A great place to start is in the big. Go back to the beginning. What were things like before you?
Paul, can I stop you there? Okay.
So where do you start? Okay, so will you count me in, Moira? Just
I will.
I
will.
So that I can start.
Sure.
So you started with the word beginning, yeah?
You said, well, do you want to hear that again?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I got to undo mine because I just deleted it. Come on, why is it not coming back? Oh, because I'm on record. Undo. Stop. Undo. Undo. Okay.
So where do you start? A great place to start is in the big. Go back to the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll come in after I hear the word beginning.
No, I'm just going to count you in because I've had to delete all that. I have deleted that.
Okay, so what's the last?
This is the last thing you said. Hold on.
So you're not leaving in a hump or something like that.
So that's what I'm leading in. I'll go back a bit more.
Now you're leaving your job. You're handing on. Let's say everything's gone very well in one sense. So you're not leaving in a hump or something like that.
And then you said, let's go back to the beginning.
Okay, sorry, I'm just not cluing into your mind. Exactly at what point am I going to continue talking? Tell me the word now. Even just
this is what you are going to say.
So where do you start? A great place to start is in the big. Go back to the beginning.
Right. So you're going to start with that sentence, and continue from there.
So is the first thing I'm going to say, a great place to start is to
exactly.
start at the beginning.
Exactly. Or whatever you want to say.
Okay.
All right.
Can you give me 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, I will. 3, 2, 1, go.
A great place to start is to go back to the beginning. What were things like when you started in the role? Deepak Menon did it really nicely. He said, I promised you that when I took up my role, there would be no change. Well, that's a paraphrase of what he said. But essentially, he started with the idea that I promised you X, and what happened was Y, because he then went on to say that what happened was a year of enormous change. So I promised you this, and what the result was, or what transpired was huge change. So you immediately get your audience thinking about the huge distance journey that there has been from the beginning, where everything was going to be very stable and very reliable, and he's been international president during the pandemic. So then he goes on to describe a little bit about what the pandemic has been like, how awful it has been. His words, the pandemic brought the entire world to a standstill. In-person meetings were abruptly put on hold. So he describes then very succinctly how Toastmasters was faced with a situation where people were not able to meet face to face. Then goes on to say, well, we did something. We got everybody to move online. And this could, with the way the audience is thinking at this point, it was pretty awful that we had to go online. There's a whole lot of loss. But you're leaving your job and you're handing over to somebody else. And that's not, we don't want to hand them over things in a real mess. So what does Deepak do? He says there was an unexpected benefit. Now here's where the drama comes in. What was the unexpected benefit of having to stop face-to-face meetings and go online and go on? People are saying to themselves, sit on Zoom, go to meetings, Teams or whatever. And he said, and this was the big point. He said the boundaries have been pulled back. We've been able to have international connections. That's the direction he's taking us in. We have a direction there. But when you're going to take people in a direction, you don't want to go on about the direction for very long. You've got to give them an example, a story. So he tells the story about how he became the general evaluator at a meeting I was at, a meeting of a brand new club. Well, prior to the club actually becoming a club, but the club is called One Country, One World. And there were, he says, 7 people from 70 countries at one meeting. It was a conventional Toastmasters meeting. I was witness to it. He gives another example. He talks about how, in addition to the multinational experience, incredible enthusiasm has been released, and District 120, somewhere in the Middle East, I think, has put together a video with 120 nationalities, people representing 120 nationalities in the video. Well, these are phenomenal things. A meeting with 70 countries represented, 120 nationalities in a video. He's painting a picture of a world that's got better. He's handing on. We are better today. Now, we may be smaller. Who knows what the renewals will lead to? Who knows whether we will lose members because of the change in some way? Maybe people won't be able to afford to be members. They won't have the money to be members. Maybe they do. Maybe some people are not as enthusiastic about international communication via the internet. But an organization that can be smaller can be better in certain respects. And that's the genius of the piece, that he hasn't taken a stand on everything that's gone on during the year and everything that's likely to come through next year. He's taken a stand on an unexpected benefit. A bit like every cloud has a silver lining. And he's left us with the words, and I'll read you the very last few words of it. I'm not going to quote you the poem that he used, but you can find that yourself. He says, as I bid you adieu, as I say goodbye to you, I want to express my gratitude to you for coming together and staying together. Aren't they great phrases? Coming together and staying together to weather the storm that we are facing. Weathering a storm, back to, was it yesterday's episode where there was talk about nautical experiences? And the last line, we are stronger today than ever before. And that's where the line comes from. We are stronger today than ever before. It doesn't say we're bigger. It doesn't say we're this or that. It says we're stronger today. So that is, you begin with, I promised you I'd do this for you. This is what actually happened. Huge change. Some awful things happened, but there's been some unexpected benefits. And we're stronger today because of this. It's a structure that you can use in many situations that you'll face in life outside Toastmasters. Well worth the cutting and pasting that speech and analyzing it for yourself. There you are, Moira. That's what I've been talking about today.
It's very interesting, I have to agree. I like also the structure. It's a structure that you can use in a speech. It's it's one of these, the past, the present, the future, or on the one hand, on the other hand. And it's a nice little twist to...
That's the twist of the unexpected benefit. I like it a lot.
I will read the article now, because that certainly, it sounds like an article worth spending a few minutes on.
And when an audience will have framed a current situation in a certain way, what you're doing, you're giving the audience a gift of reframing the situation in a way they might not have framed it for themselves.
Yes.
That's leadership speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll bring this episode then to a close, and we'll look forward to you joining us again tomorrow, when I shall be continuing the look at various rhetorical devices and trying to analyze them and see how we can make use of them. We'll see you tomorrow at the same time.
I'll be back in a minute, Moira. I just want to
Sure.
see my brother-in-law.
Okay.
A second. Dermot. Hello, sir. Hello. I can move out of your office. You're grand? No, I don't want to. We'll be finished in 2 minutes. No problem. Then I'll be finished. I'll be here all day.
Yeah, no problem at all, Paul. Work away. All good.
Good to see you.
See you. You're keeping well.
I am, yeah. I don't want to go on stage.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, I bet
It's
you
like
do.
every
Probably.
day.
But yeah. Are you doing anything tonight?
I am not. No, I'm staying put tonight.
Has your sister been in touch with you?
I think you're doing fish and chips or something like that.
Oh, are we? Right, okay. Hey, look, I'll see you. I better finish this.
Okay, cool.
Yes, you possibly should have muted yourself before you went out, Paul. we heard all of that in glorious Technicolor.
Well, nothing private was said. So.
I know. Right, so I think you're going to be bringing us in, are you? Once again, with passion. Are you ready, Paul?
I'm ready.
Let me make sure I'm ready, because I'm not. There it is. Okay, I just need to do that.
Hey, Moira, what's our
Yep.
website again? It's irishtalkers.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
How long have you been in the show, Paul?
Yeah, but I've never had the role of mentioning the email address. I'm going to mention it today.
But you should know it by heart, because you should be going in there every day and every hour and checking on the niceties and the good things that we're...
The latest comments that have been put on the website. I know what you
Absolutely,
mean. It's actually, sorry, on a completely different note, we
let me do that. Sorry. Yes, carry on.
I got an email from Ted Corcoran.
Yes, I think...
And it actually, in effect, it is a feedback about the show.
Oh, really?
And I'll find it in a second. And I had intended, I forgot, to bring it in at Corcoran at the first section. Hold on a second now, here. Yeah, well, you know that we mentioned Ted Corcoran as doing the crack during the International Convention. This is what he said, because I sent him the recording of the piece we did about it. He said, Paul, thanks for the mention. I've attended every international convention since 1992 and have run the sing-along, as it's called in the USA, every year since. So this will be the 29th consecutive time, but the first not in-person one. As for my place of birth, and there was reference to that, I was born and raised in a parish called Fossa outside Killarney. Liebherr's Crane Factory, Killarney, and Hotel Europe are all located, Killarney Golf Club, and Hotel Europe are all located in the parish. I've been living in Dublin for the last 51 years. The Killarney Toastmasters Club was chartered in 2004, the year I was international president, and I'm proud to say I'm a charter member. Now you know a little more about me, just a country boy at heart.
That's nice. That's very nice. You did actually share that email, Paul.
Well, I was going to, you see, the thing is, I was a bit concerned about time and causing you. I wish I'd brought this in earlier. We could have
Yeah,
put it into another. What do you think?
it's a nice little section to, yeah,
Will we finish
If
the
you-
whole show on it?
we could do. We could do.
But look, it's your call, because it's a bit unfair to bring it up at this stage in the recordings.
Well, we can always tag it into the, somehow into the first section. We do it as a separate, we'll do it as a separate thing. How about that? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll put it in maybe right at the beginning before the thought for today, thought for the week.
So will I record it now, or will I wait till after
Let's
you've
do it.
done?
Let's do it at the end.
Okay.
All right. Okay. I'm now queuing myself up. All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome, listeners. You're very welcome to the Talk Show for Talkers. And you can find the Talk Show for Talkers on irishtalkers.com. irishtalkers.com. Doesn't mean we're all Irish, but irishtalkers.com comes from you in Ireland. And now I want to introduce you to one of our star presenters who majors very much on making really good speeches and excellent speech formations. She's going to tell us more this week about rhetorical devices. Moira O'Brien, what have you got in store for us this week?
Well, it's quite simple, Paul. Last week we finished off our little sojourn through the rhetorical devices by, well, we got halfway through not even halfway through the alphabet, unfortunately. There's so many of these things. I think somebody said that in a book they'd found maybe 126 different rhetorical devices. But I have a list here of the ones that I thought were quite nice. And I think there's about 31 of them. We only covered the first 10 or so, if that. And we'll try and go maybe a little bit slower today and not maybe cover quite so many, because I appreciate that it's not easy to take these things in. But what I will be doing is putting up the script of this onto our website when we finish going through, and because we might yet do another episode on this, we'll see. And then you'll be able to read them yourself. Now the next one, I read this first and it looked like an apostrophe, but actually it's epistrophe. Very close in sound, epistrophe. And this is repetition of the same word or words at the end of successive phrases, clauses or sentences. And it's the counterpart of one we spoke of last week, which was anaphora. Here's an example. Of the people, by the people, for the people. And you'll notice that's also a triad. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny compared to what lies within us. That's a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. And that comes from the Apostle Paul, apparently. So you can see it's repetition of a word, but it's not just repetition for the sake of repetition. It's repetition to create an emphasis, or, as the word says, an epistrophe. Epizeuxis. This is another repetition situation. Repetition of words in immediate succession for vehemence or for emphasis. From Macbeth. Oh, horror, horror, horror. Winston Churchill. Never give in. Never, 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 never. I think this is one that one should use with brevity. and not to overdo it. I think if you used it once in a speech, that would be more than enough. Exemplum. Now you might get a guess as to what this might be about. Exemplum. It's sort of like example, isn't it? And yes, that's exactly what it is. It's citing an example or using an illustrative story. For example, consider the following situation. A man walks down the street. He's homeless. He carries only one bag. Right, so that's sort of an illustrative story. The beginnings were tough, like when I stood in front of that subway ticket machine in Berlin with €1.27 in my left pocket. Tough. Citing an example. Now, these you can use very effectively at the beginning of a speech. It's sort of like when you're trying to lead into a story and you want to be able to set the scene. And one of the most effective ways of setting that scene is to evoke the senses and evoke imagination, and especially the visual sense. By taking that second one, right? Like when I stood in front of that subway ticket machine in Berlin with €1.27 in my left pocket. You can visualize that. And that's what this enables you and helps you to do. Next one, hyperlage. Hyperlage. How the heaven do you say that? Hyperlage. An interchange of two elements in a phrase or sentence from a more logical to a less logical relationship. I quite like this one. It's not easy to use, but think about it. You are lost to joy, for joy is lost to you. It's a sort of changing things around, but using the same words and changing the meaning of those words. And it can be very effective, but again, don't overuse. Hyperbaton, a transposition or inversion of idiomatic word order. It's a similar one again. Judge me by my size, do you? Ooh, I don't like that. I'm going to ignore that one. Hyperbole. Oh, we hear this a lot, don't we, amongst our politicians? Hyperbole, extravagant exaggeration, mile-high ice cream cones. The bag weighed a ton. I'm so mean I make medicine sick. That's from Muhammad Ali. This is a nice one because by exaggerating, we call attention to the particular thing that we're looking at. So if it's size, mile-high ice cream cone. Well, of course, the ice cream cone is not going to be a mile high, but just by saying that makes people think, yeah, that's big, isn't it? Paul?
I was grammarian at a club recently, and it's a club which, in addition to having a word of the week, it has a rhetorical device of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And hyperbole, exaggeration, was the one that I offered people an opportunity to practice.
Mm-hmm.
This was an advanced club, very experienced speakers. They found it very difficult to exaggerate. And so it is, it's an interesting challenge to have in a club, you know, avoid using very and come up with words that exaggerate the situation.
Yeah.
So it was quite a challenge and a worthy one. And so the club decided that they would repeat the same challenge the following week,
Mm-hmm.
use the same rhetorical device twice. I just thought I'd ship that.
Yeah, it's a good idea. It's a good idea. And these are not easy to use. None of these, well, not none of them, but a lot of them are actually quite difficult to use. You have to be very aware of them to be able to bring them in. And they are very deliberate. This is not something you're going to do accidentally when you're writing a speech. You've actually got to think yourself into the use of these. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Hypophora. consists of raising one or more questions and then proceeding to answer them, usually at some length. And this is a common usage to ask a question at the beginning of a paragraph and then use the paragraph to answer it. And this, I know a lot of us do use in speech making to begin a speech. It's a rhetorical question. The very meaning of rhetorical question. Example. So what does all this mean? It means that da-da-da-da-da. What behavior then is uniquely human? My theory is da-da-da-da, etc. So you can use this very effectively. It's a rhetorical question. You're not expecting the audience to answer it. It's just a way of leading into the answer that you're going to give. Right, next one, litotes, understatement in which an affirmative is expressed by the negative of the contrary. I think we do this in our day-to-day language quite frequently. Not a bad singer. Think about that. Not a bad singer means it's a good singer. Or damning with faint praise. Damning with faint praise. We give somebody a little bit of praise. But by so doing, we're actually saying they're not very good. Because if we really wanted to praise them, we'd be more effusive in our praise. Metabasis. This consists of a brief statement of what has been said and what will follow. Usually, or especially in longer presentations, such as in-between summaries, are useful for your audience because they support the clarity of your argumentation. Now that I've explained the core of this problem, I will continue to examine its reasons. Now, this is a good linking strategy, of linking from first part of your segment, let's say, to the second part, where the two are very related. Another example. Now that I've made this catalogue of swindles and perversions, let me give another example of the kind of writing that they lead to. That came from George Orwell. Well, we haven't really covered very much. In fact, we have, I would say we're barely halfway through the list, but I think that's enough for today. There are a lot more interesting ones to come, and maybe we'll revisit it in a few weeks' time. So that's all from me. Paul, do you have anything you'd like to add before we close?
Only that it's been terrific experience being listened to today.
I'm trying to work out what particular rhetorical device you used there. I have a feeling it was damning with faint praise. Okay, with that, folks, we will...
That's Moira, it is a rhetorical device in which you lead the audience to expect that they know what the next thing. You say it's been a terrific experience, and they're expecting you to say, to have the opportunity to talk to you today.
Yeah.
And instead you're saying, it's a terrific experience to have you listen to me today.
Yes, okay.
And that, there's definitely got to be a word for that.
Yeah, I'm sure there is if I was to go through the list in more detail. Anyway, folks, listen, we've taken up enough of your time. I hope you've enjoyed this week's series. Hopefully Ted Malampy will be back with us next week, and you'll hear his mellifluous tones. But for now, from Paul and from myself, we'll see you again next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Keep on listening. Moira, I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
I suggest you cut out the one of the rhetorical devices because your pronunciation of it was so far from the actual correct pronunciation.
Which one's that? I can always.
Litotes. It's litotes.
Oh, lactose.
Hang on, that could be reputation damaging.
Litotes. I will re-record that. Litotes.
I'd cut that one out.
Litotes. No, I won't cut it out. I will just I'll just re-record it. Little do you know how much re-recording I actually do in this show. It happens.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
happens. It
Anyway,
happens.
I was
Right.
so shocked that I decided I've got to be sure of my facts here. So while you were talking, I went on the internet and I listened to somebody. I listened to the correct pronunciation of the word. I thought, right, I got to be certain here. So yeah, it's
Litotes.
I mean, I couldn't have told you what litotes meant before you spoke about it, and I'd have difficulty telling you what it means now, actually.
Well, I've now
But
just written it down phonetically.
I
So
thought okay, so we do the Ted Corcoran one.
yeah, let's do the Ted Corcoran one. Okay, so let me just kill this little segment as I usually do, and making sure I don't cut off the beginning as I often do. Okay. Okay, Paul, 3, 2, 1, go.
Listeners, we got a letter. We got a letter from somebody that we spoke about recently. We spoke about Ted Corcoran, past international president of Toastmasters International, who's going to be looking after an event, a very important event that's going to take place very soon during the online international convention. And here is what Ted has to say, because I sent him the link to the episode in which we mentioned him. He says, Paul, thanks for the mention. I've attended every international convention since 1992 and have run the sing-along, as it's called in the USA. This is the crack, as it's called in Ireland, by the way. The sing-along, as it's called in the USA, every year since. So this will be the 29th consecutive time, but the first not in-person one. As for my place of birth, which we didn't know when we spoke about him, I was born and raised in a parish called Fossa, outside Killarney. Liebherr's Crane Factory, Killarney Golf Club, and Hotel Europe are all located in the same parish. I've been living in Dublin for the last 51 years. The Killarney Toastmasters Club was chartered in 2004, the year I was international president, and I'm proud to say I'm a charter member. Now you know a little more about me, just a country boy at heart, Ted. And that's
lovely.
Speech pleasure.
Thank you, Ted Corcoran. Okay, that's good.
Great.
That's a couple of minutes, so it'll easily fit in. So that's it, folks. We're going to love you and leave you.
Yep.
It's
Club officer training has finished.
has it?
I've enjoyed it. Well, no, but our bit of it we've done too with them, and but you know I've loved it. But my God, they haven't half demanded intense concentration.
Well, yeah, because this year, well, our district, I know many other districts have been doing this for many years, but we haven't. Our district had a what they called it? Not club officer training. Come on, you know the name.
You mean mop up?
No. Instead of calling it a COT.
Oh, instead of calling it club officer training,
Yeah. What's
calling
the word?
it, you mean the Toastmasters Leadership
That's
Institute?
right, TLI. Yeah, Toastmaster Leadership Institute. Now I know that many other districts have been doing this for years, but we haven't in our district, and I'm disappointed that we hadn't done it before because I think they were excellent. They were long, and that's when we're talking about online meetings, that's not so good because it can be very tiring having an all-day session online. But the quality of the content, I thought, was so much better than we've done at local level in the past. So well done. Okay. We'll stop
Yeah.
the stream.
Okay.
See you again next week, folks.
I will see you next week, Moira.
Yep.
Yeah. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.